Hello, YouTubers, and welcome back to another episode of The Grandstand here on the Ohio Patriot Education Network YouTube channel. I'm, as always, your host, AR the Ohio Patriot. And for today's episode, we're going to talk about how leftists love to lie and gaslight because they are, in fact, the real extremists and terrorists of this country. Obviously, this comes yet again because I was on Reddit a little bit ago here, and the site just keeps on giving that leftist hate, man, to where I just want to call it out all the time, is what it is. But, yeah, so basically, you got the mainstream media lying their asses off, specifically The Guardian, claiming that it's right wing lone wolf extremism that's causing a bunch of terror attacks in this country, yet they will completely lie about that shit because it's actually US government funded in many cases. And if it's not U.S. government funded, it's actual terrorist organizations like Antifa, BLM, etc., that are behind these things in various states like Oregon, Washington State, California, etc. So, anyway, pretty much any state, any city that you can't carry a gun in legally is where these assholes love to attack and gang attack and commit terrorism and acts of terror and assault and battery, etc., etc. All kinds of terrorist antics is what it is. But, anywho. And obviously, when you look up the term extremist, is a person who holds extreme and fanatical political or religious views, especially one who resorts to or advocates extreme action, aka exactly what Antifa is doing with every time they do a direct action and stuff on people is what it is, or BLM, etc. There. So, yeah, bunch of bullshit entirely. So we're gonna talk about that here in a minute, and then we're also gonna talk about some other stuff. One thing I think is interesting though, looking at the our politics subreddit here, because I was looking up the lone wolf thing for it, is what it was earlier. And what I think is funny is that you have these people that will again sit there and gaslight and lie about shit because they will sit there and falsely claim the right is using the Nashville shooting to declare war on trans people. That was 2 months ago. And then we got 6 months ago, 12 times that Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert stoked anti LGBTQ violence that led to a mass shooting. She has spent years accusing LGBTQ people of mutilating kids and threatening uh, civilization. Except that's actually what they do, man. They fucking literally completely sterilize children, is what it is. And then we got this great gem from about a year ago. Buffalo shooter isn't a lone wolf. He's a mainstream Republican. That's a fucking lie entirely. It was proven that kid was actually hardcore left wing, and he was also another fucking government psyop piece of shit, basically. And then we got Second Revolution begins. Armed right wing groups celebrate Capitol attack. That was 2 years ago, by the way. Like, such a bunch of lies, dude. Like, it's all fucking lies, man. And then they want to sit there and, equate like neo-Nazism to like right-wing stuff when in reality, none of that's happening on the right. It's either, again, government-funded groups like fucking um, Blood Tribe or Patriot Front or whatever the case be, or and by the way, most of those guys are either Fed informants or they're actual U.S. military is what it is right now. They're behind those masks is what it is. That's why they mask up, obviously, so you can't identify them and, run a scan through some stuff and facial recognition software and identify them very easily is what it would be then. Of like, oh yeah, this guy's, E6 or whatever in the US fucking army or something like that. So anyway, that being said, you also have obviously, like I said, the Antifa terrorism and the BLM terrorism. They're all left wing, done for about probably a decade or so now, and they've been endorsed by the government for such a thing. So it's just a bunch of shit entirely. I'm gonna answer a question real quick here. The 30-round mag ban from Columbus. As far as I'm aware, there was a Delaware County judge. So where Franklin County sits right there in the middle, there's like a Delaware County, which is right next to it here or whatever. And it was a judge from that county that basically said no. And they're like a federal judge, if I'm not mistaken, there. And they're like, nah, bro, Ginther has no legal ability to do that shit. It's basically injunctioned on it or whatever. So as far as I know, it's not going to go into place on July 1st. But who the fuck knows? Now we got the state of Columbus suing or sorry, state of Ohio suing the city of Columbus, and they're basically doing that because you have Ginther and company trying to break state preemption with that bullshit come July. And then you got these fucking, like I said yesterday, these leftist assholes will lie about stuff there, like Morgan Trout and stuff like that. One of these local mainstream media reporters will lie about, like, oh, this stuff, or you got fucking dipshit Casey Weinstein, who's a scumbag sack of shit. I hate that guy so fucking much, dude. I really do. Because he should be out of our state house right now. He should have been out of there 4 years ago when he committed the hoax on himself, and he should have been in jail right now for the past 4 years, is what it is. So, and the fact that he's never been investigated for that is absolutely ridiculous. When I caught a federal swatting less than a month before he did his hate hoax. So, anyway, again, it goes back to the, right versus left mantra of like, if you're on the right, you get fucked in the ass, and if you're on the left, you get fucking nothing. You get a slap on the wrist, or you don't even get investigated for anything, is what it is. So, but anyway, so yeah, so basically you have a couple things I want to talk about here, which is obviously the first one being this BS article from The Guardian here, which is what got me on this whole thing today, which was, let's see here. Experts warn of increased risk of U.S. terror attacks by right-wing lone wolf actors, individuals rather than organized groups more likely to commit extremist crimes as inflammatory Republican rhetoric escalates. What a fucking joke, dude. I love how they're using the Nazi flag and the U-Haul thing when it's proven that guy, already proven within like less than 2 hours of that shit happening, that guy was a fucking like Turkish foreign national and was 100% a fucking government plant is what it is, dude. So, yeah, again, it's just, it's all gaslighting, dude. It's to make you seem like you're insane when they're the ones that are fucking insane. It's them trying to push propaganda and use rules for radicals playbooks at this point to push their extremist agenda. And when you actually look at the whole rules for radicals thing, which we're going to go ahead and look up right now, actually, and discuss that stuff and exactly where we're at with that whole shit, with that whole playbook that they're using right now. So, obviously, for those that don't know, Rules for Radicals was a book made up by some left-wing dipshit back in the 1970s. Oh, so that's right, it was Saul Alinsky. That's who it was. It was the Saul Alinsky tactics there. So, yeah, it was Rules for Radicals, a pragmatic premiere for realistic radicals, and it was basically how to commit like terrorism and, communism and stuff like that, take over America and shit. But when you go down the rules here, so we got power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have, and that's exactly what these fucking people, they want to make themselves big, is what it is, dude. Even though they really don't have power, is what it is. 2, never go outside the expertise of your people, and that's why they'll never debate you, by the way. 3, whenever possible, go outside the expertise of the enemy. So basically, whenever you're, doing gun stuff or whatever the case be, or pro-life stuff or whatever the case be, then they'll like try to throw something else at you and, pull some bullshit is what it is then. Let's see. 4, make the enemy live up to its own book of rules, and that's exactly what we're seeing now with the whole rules for thee but not for me kind of thing. Or sorry, rules for me but not for thee kind of thing with the different Democrats and alphas and stuff like that. And then they're trying to be like, oh, you need to live up to this shit or whatever the case be and denounce all this stuff. Yet, meanwhile, they refuse to denounce the actual child molestation going on in their own party, refuse to denounce the continued push at, trans stuff on the kids and stuff like that nowadays, et cetera, et cetera. And then we got 5, ridicule is man's most potent weapon. There is no defense. It is almost impossible to counterattack ridicule. Also, it infuriates the opposition who then react to your advantage. And that's exactly what they do all the time, by the way. This is the big one right there, number 5, is what they do all the fucking time, dude, where they're just like, oh, well, we're going to say we're not doing this stuff and basically piss you off is what it is. Let's see, number 6, a good tactic is one your people enjoy. 7, a tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. 8, keep the pressure on, which is what they're doing all the time with these insurrections anymore at the state houses across this country for the past 4 months or so. Number 9, the threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself, which is exactly why we're seeing these various, bomb threats that they were calling into various targets now is what it is. Since Target basically, was like, oh, we're going to take away the drag stuff now or whatever, or take away like the trans stuff for the kids is what it is now. Let's see. 10, the major promise for tactics is development of operations that will maintain a consistent pressure upon the opposition. That's what they're trying to do all the time with anti-gun bills and shit like that in these state houses that Democrats have control of. 11, if you push a negative hard and deep enough, it will break through into its counter side. This is based on the principle that every positive has its negative. That's pretty much what we're seeing too, by the way, with like the acceptance of like BLM in the past few years, and then people finally like, we're like, no, fuck that shit or whatever now. 12, the price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative. And 13, pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. And that's a big one that they love to do, by the way, too. Well, they're like, it's like the whole mob rule thing with Daniel Penny recently in New York there, where they're like, oh, this guy has to be destroyed and destroyed and destroyed and destroyed. And like, it's basically them, going out there and committing actual fucking terrorist attacks in New York City and, screaming at the random residents of the city and stuff like that until they eventually get their mob win by having, piece of shit Soros DA Alvin Bragg bring up Penny on charges there, even though he did not do anything wrong. He legitimately saw a threat on the fucking subway. Others did too, for that matter. And now you're basically having this dude be railroaded by the state of New York right now over some bullshit, over defending himself and other people is what it is. And it's the same thing with Daniel Perry down there in Texas. You had that dude defend himself against an actual BLM terrorist who was pointing a fucking gun at him at the time. And then you got piece of shit Soros DA, Jose Garza, going out there and being like, let me go ahead and have the main detective in the situation retract a whole bunch of fucking information that was definitely needed in this case that proved Daniel Perry's innocence in that case in Texas, and just throw it out the fucking window, basically, and commit all kinds of fucking crimes right now. And yet, Jose Garza still has yet to be charged and thrown out of the DA's office and actually put in Texas prison where he belongs right now. But yet, meanwhile, you got AG Ken Paxton now being impeached down there in Texas. Like, the insanity is just fucking beyond belief at this point, man. Like, we are just going towards a time right now where it's going to be like revolution at some point, just because. Or it's going to be like civil war, at least revolution at some point, just because. And the thing is, it's like, these leftists want to sit there and bitch and moan about it or whatever the case may be. Yeah, they're the ones that are creating it, dude. They're the ones that are putting us on this collision course to that point in time in history where it's going to happen. Because they keep doing all this shit and they keep doing all these other things and stuff like that, where it's going to be, that pendulum swing, or it'll eventually be, that pendulum reaction swing that'll be like the fucking Game of Thrones Sept episode there, where it's like Cersei, using the wildfire and just booming the fucking Sept up to nothing. This is what it is, dude. That's what I think we're on right now. I think we're on a powder keg, honestly. A powder keg to that collision, where it's basically, and I've said it before. I use an analogy before. I'll say it again right now. It's like, you got that dude in a room back in like 1776 or whatever the case be, and that room is full of a bunch of barrels of gunpowder. Dude's sitting there smoking a big ass cigar. There's a lit ash that comes off of it, and it's just starting to float through the air and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, it hits like one of the powder charges or whatever, and it's just like all the way up to the keg and stuff. And then eventually hits that keg, and it's just like boom. And I feel like we're on that collision course right now, where it's like the ash has already landed on the fucking powder. The powder's starting to sizzle and stuff like that. And it's only a matter of time before, that lit fuse hits the big ass keg is what it is. And just, everything is what it is then. And that'll pretty much be, what actually kicks off the Second American Civil War that'll eventually lead to the Second American Revolution in this country. And it's sad that these leftists want to sit there and put us on that pathway instead of actually just being cool and being like, nah, man, like fucking deal with your own shit. If you want to go do whatever here, go to a state that fucking endorses that shit or whatever the case be, move to that state or whatever. Move out of these red states, go to your fucking blue states and stuff like that. And we can have a peaceful transition is what it is. But that's the problem. They don't want to have the peaceful transition. They would rather have violent fucking fights in the streets at this point. And what they really want is they want 2020 all over again, man. I was watching some videos that people were putting up on Twitter yesterday, actually, of various attacks happened during 2020 riots and stuff like that, where you had that one guy, it was like some white dude, like all dazed out or whatever, because he got beat up by a bunch of fucking mob of Antifa and BLM terrorists there. And he's like trying to gather himself on the ground. And you have some fucking piece of shit black dude run up behind him and fucking kick him in the fucking face then. And it's like, that's exactly what these fuckers want, dude. They want to kick you while you're already down, is what it is. They want to take your life in many cases. And if they can't do that, then they want to do the next best thing, which is take your identity, take your money, basically defame and ridicule you to nothing, is what it is. And again, it goes back to the rules for radicals public there. So, yeah, it's just a bunch of shit entirely. And then we got a couple other ones I want to talk about here, which is basically going back to the rules for radicals thing for a minute there, which was the where is that here now? Yeah, it was make enemy live up to its own book of rules, which goes back to this story right here, where you got these leftists who are actually committing child abuse at drag shows and stuff like that. That's what it is. But yet they want to sit there and claim that rampant child sex abuse is occurring in churches, not in drag shows. A new report alleges widespread sex abuse in the Catholic clergy in Illinois. So one state, basically, what they're saying there. Well, conservatives call for a ban on minors in churches. Yeah, because MSNBC is a good fucking source for bullshit, dude. Yeah, because the fucking mainstream media lying their fucking asses off is really a fucking news source at this point. No, it's not. Fuck you, people. I don't believe a goddamn word coming out of the mainstream media at that point for that shit, dude. That being said, do I believe that there actually is child abuse going on in various clergy and stuff like that? Of course there is, dude. There has been forever, is what it is. And yes, I and many other people at that point have called it out and condemned it at that point. The problem is we're not bringing these sick ass pedo priests up on fucking charges. Is what it is, man. It's one of the many reasons why I personally left the Catholic Church a while ago and consider myself to be basically a lapsed Catholic, or at least a follower of Christianity without a church, is what it is right now. Because I refuse to go into those churches, is what it is. Because I refuse to deal with that bullshit, is what it is. So, anyway. And then, of course, you got pieces of shit in that thread being like, it was never about protecting the kids. Yes, it was, you sick fucking pedophiles. And I swear to God, the same people that are saying that kind of shit, dude, are the people that are actually molesting these kids, is what it is. And that's the thing, right? When you look at these drag shows and shit, dude, there's a reason why like half of the people that are doing this fucking shit are registered sex offenders with actual sex abuse charges on them already at this point for various crimes they've committed against children right now. So, yeah, fuck all y'all, man. And then we got this great gem right here, which is people basically discussing about how they are just a bunch of lazy bastards, essentially, claiming pandemic social programs saved my life. Now the GOP want to shred what little is left. We know the proper social investments keep us out of poverty, drastically reduce unemployment, and give long-term positive benefits to children, so we're fighting back. Except it doesn't. What it does is create dependency and create fucking government handouts and assistance programs where you have generational poverty and generational welfare queens in many cases. And it's fucking disgusting, dude. When you have the same family for 3, 4, 5 generations now in many cases, all on fucking welfare for their entire lives, dude. No, you're not a net positive to anything, dude. You're a fucking drain on the system, is what it is. Am I going to sit here and say that there shouldn't be some kind of program in place that could help people out for a little bit of time that may need it and stuff like that? Of course there should be. But that's the whole point. It should be for a small amount of time. It shouldn't be, hey, here's fucking welfare handouts for the next 20 years of your fucking life. Have at it, Hoss. Oh, you know how to get a job because you're some bitch? Okay, cool. Whatever then. Oh, you have like 10 kids? Okay, cool. Here's a bunch more money now. That's what they do, by the way. And that's how they also fuck over men, too, by the way, in those welfare systems, too. I know that for a fact because I've had it happen to me, is what it is, dude. And yeah, if you're a guy, specifically here in the state of Ohio, and you have no dependents, you get 3 months on EBT, and then you get fucked over for 3 years. And it's like, what the fuck, man? And it's a bunch of shit. Because it's them basically forcing like a right to work kind of thing is what it is there. And it's like, I have no problem working, but the problem is like, for me personally, many jobs out there I can't do is what it is right now because of my back problems. And the fact that they refuse to give me disability and stuff like that bullshit as well. You know, that's why I'm running for office right now, because it's like, hey, might as well take one of their jobs then, make some money there. Fucking actually fix the system from the inside out is what it is then. So anyway, but yeah, it's just a bunch of crap, dude, entirely. And it's really disgusting in general of how these people want to do this shit then. And yet, meanwhile, these same politicians or whatever the case be, you know, they make anywhere from like 35,000 to like 40 something thousand in state houses. And so somewhere, I think there's one at least 50 or 6,000 even, depending on where you're at. I think California is one of those ones. And then it's like, you know, obviously federal Congress and Senate is like 174,000 a year tax free. And it's like, bro, you guys are the real welfare queens at this point. Y'all politicians are the real welfare queens in this country, honestly. So, yeah, especially people like Bernie Sanders that have, what is it, 4 or 5 houses now all paid for by taxpayer money and insider trading and stuff like that, and then making backdoor deals with shady ass motherfuckers is what it is then. But no, that's the problem though. It's like and again, it goes back to the voter fraud, or it goes back to the massive fraud in these programs as well. We looked at the whole 2020 and stuff like that with the whole, quote unquote pandemic bills and shit. What happened there? You had so many people commit PPP loan theft, but yet almost nobody is charged with it because, again, why is that? Because it goes on a race basis, is what it is, dude. It's in many cases, it was people who were not white in this country who were the ones grabbing for it. It was a bunch of the Somalis in fucking Columbus, Ohio, and over there in Minnesota and stuff like that were behind a big ass ring of that shit. It was a lot of other people like that as well, that same skin tone that were doing it, various states across this country. And yet, meanwhile, then you got people like the original Red Ranger, Austin St. John, who actually did get busted for it, and he's sitting in front of president right now for the next like 3 to 5 years of his life, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even longer than that. So yeah, it's a bunch of shit all the way around, dude. And yet, then you got sitting governors like Mike DeWine, who took one out for a baseball team he owns in Indiana. And it's like, how the fuck is this dude not in some kind of prison system right now for that shit? How is he even allowed to run for governor again in 2022, And it just shows like the corruption and just the complete fucking scumbaggery of the system entirely right now. And why it needs to be reset to zero at this point, honestly. And I think that's going to happen very soon in this country, honestly. Whether it be a revolt, revolution, whatever the case be that's going to cause it, or whether it be just naturally the system itself will fall again, Great Depression style, maybe balkanization or something like that after the fact. And then you'll basically have a new system rise up in its place that for a little bit of time will not be corrupt because it'll actually be the people again that'll be behind the system and stuff like that, and not, giant corporations and giant fucking special interests and stuff like that'll be corrupting politicians is what it'll be then. You'll actually have civil servants again is what it'll be then. So yeah. Anyway. I don't know anymore though. I think we're all fucked, honestly. I truthfully believe that honestly anymore. I think it's only a matter of time before things fall in this country. And I just wake up every day and I'm just like, okay, is World War III started yet? Okay, it hasn't. Okay, cool. And then it's like, oh, have we actually gone to Civil War yet? Okay, no, we haven't. Okay, cool. And yeah, I'm just waiting for the day for either one of those things to happen right now. And I think when it does, you're going to see a big change in this country, in this world, really, honestly, especially if we're going to World War III right now. So, I don't know. Actually, going back to the Roche radicals thing about making people live up to their own standards and stuff like that, you got pieces of shit like Jerry Nadler this week talking about fucking sending F-15s to basically invade Russia now. And it's like, dude, how were you still a sitting congressman after that and not being arrested on the spot for high treason against the American people at that point in time in history? It just blows my mind, honestly. It really does. So, anyway. I'm going to jump back to the comments here for a minute. Trying to pass. Yeah, they're trying to. That's basically what Ohio is actually suing Columbus over right now. Is Ginther's mag ban thing is also a safe storage law situation. It's like I mentioned in yesterday's episode with that bitch Casey Weinstein, where they're basically trying to pass this crap. And then of course you got. Let's see if I can find it here real quick. Actually, on Legiscan, because there's one that Jessica Miranda, who's one of the biggest fucking cunt Democrats in the state house right now. It's her and some other like first term Dem. Are trying to push through some safe storage bullshit here. Is this one looking for? Yes, this one looking for here. Yeah, I love how they title this too. By the way, and this is the thing about Democrats too that you got to realize. Like, this is why these people are such scumbags, because the way that they'll call something, it's always a bunch of shit. It's always a bunch of lies, and it's to sit there and be like wordsmith kind of crap. For where they're like, oh well, if you actually have like this thing in place or whatever the case be, it's going to be fine then. Which is exactly what this bullshit here is. Which is, let's see, safe storage of firearms to authorize an income tax credit for the purchase of firearm storage and locking devices And to name the act, the Keep Every Home Safe Act, and make an appropriation, which is, by the way, the money that they would need to do this is what it is. But yeah, you got Miranda, and then you got Darnell Brewer, who's a scumbag, first term rep then, that are behind this. And then, of course, you got the pieces of shit like Rachel Baker, who's a known Moms Man Action member who should have been immediately disqualified on the spot from even being in our state house right now. We got Sean Brennan, who is a first term state rep and a fucking complete sack of shit. You got Richard Brown, who shouldn't even be in our state house right now because he definitely cheated his way back in office in the 2022 midterms. Elliot Forhans, who's a fucking pedophile, who is one of the 8 Democrats who's actually behind the shit to make it illegal to lure kids to various people's cars and stuff like that. Michelle Grimm, who I think is also on that fucking that pedo bill as well. Mary Lightbody, who's the same stupid old bitch who was trying to give who's that woman? The ex-health director of Ohio, her own day, Amy Acton. Lauren McNally, who's a first-term rep. Phil Robinson, who's one of these anti-gun scumbags, has been there forever, is what it is. Anita Samani, who's actually a fucking child sex transition doctor in the state. How the fuck she's not in prison right now for literally mutilating kids is beyond me. Then we got good old Cecil Thomas, who was actually termed out of the state senate last year and should have been out of office completely, but then he fucking flip-flopped General Assembly, completely breaking the term limit thing to begin with. Terrence Upchurch, another fucking anti-gun party line vote guy, and of course, little bitch Casey Weinstein, who should have been thrown out of our state house 4 years ago, is what it is, or the 14 that's on this. So, pretty much like almost half of the Democrats that are currently in our state house are on this right now, because there's 32, and it would be 16 then if you would have the exactly half then. So it's like 47, 48%, something like that is on this right now. So, just ridiculous, dude, entirely. And yeah, thank God this is gonna go nowhere because we ain't putting up with that shit, dude. Like, here's my thing, right? If they really wanted to have something, okay, do not require safe storage of firearms in the legislation. If you want to have a piece of legislation, you want to call it the Keep Every Home Safe Act, and it would be simply to authorize an income tax credit for the purchase of gun safes, etc. there, that's fine, dude. I'd be 100% on board with that, honestly. But when you're sitting there and telling Ohioans what we have to do to keep our firearms locked up or we become fucking felons because you're a fucking piece of shit, Hitlerian fucking wannabe, scumbag ass Nazi fuck you, man. That's what I say to these motherfuckers. Because that's what these fucking people are, man. They want to sit there and they want to dictate our fucking lives when they are some of the most corrupt, criminal scumbags in this state or any other state for that matter in this country right now, who should have already been arrested 4 fucking years ago in many cases, like Jessica Miranda, Casey Weinstein, etc. there, when they tried to push through gun control in the wake of Dayton. Every single one of those people, 3 days after Dayton, all the ones that are not first termers, were in that state house trying to push gun control on, I'm trying to think whenever the Dayton massacre was. It was that Sunday, and it was the Wednesday after that is when they're trying to push the shit through then. In that early August there. So, yeah, it's just a bunch of disgusting shit, dude. And that's the thing. That's how these people work all the time. They're tragedy pimps, legitimately. Because they always create a fucking tragedy, legitimately, by creating shit like gun-free zones everywhere. And then they want to sit there and act like, oh, we're from the government and we're here to help by pushing through unconstitutional bullshit that completely is unconstitutional and restricts your Second Amendment rights, not to mention breaks their oath of office they swore to uphold the Constitution. They took office back in January of 2019 there. So, yeah, it really is time to just hold these fuckers' feet to the fire at this point, man, and start mass arresting them across the board. And if that means getting into office ourselves and turning deprivation of rights of law from a misdemeanor into a felony in every single state in this country right now, that's what's going to have to be done right now. Because that's what should be done already at this point. That should have been upped from misdemeanor to felony centuries ago, honestly. At least a century ago, if not longer than that, maybe 2 centuries ago right now. I guarantee if our founding fathers knew exactly what was going to become of the tyrannical bullshit in this country right now, in the past, 50, 200 years or so, give or take, they would have definitely put some things in the Constitution about actually having deprivation rights of law as a felony. Because they would have been like, no, do what you need to do, man. Now, granted, that'd be the case, and they're their case, obviously, in that time period, they wouldn't have put up with it at all, man. They would have already gone to war at this point with these people. They would have already, basically had the drop floors ready and stuff like that is what it is for these motherfuckers. So, you know, by the way, just so we're clear on that one, that's a historical fact of what they would have done. I'm not saying that's what should be done now, obviously, but like for me personally, I'd say lifetime imprisonment for these fucking people at mere minimum is what it would be then, and that would work for me, honestly. So, but yeah, it's the problem is that we're not actually holding them to account. They're not being held accountable for their actions. Their actions don't have any consequences right now, and that's why they're so emboldened to keep doing this shit because they're not being smacked down, because they're not being arrested out of office, because they're not being charged with various crimes across the board. And I guarantee if they were, you would have the rest of them just shut the fuck up and either resign en masse in response to that, or they would just shut the fuck up, finish out their term, and then just leave. Basically, is what it would be after that then. So, anyway, personally, it was up to me. I would say, truthfully, the second that these pieces of legislation are submitted at that point in time in history, that second that they're submitted into the various state houses and stuff like that, gone, you're done, goodbye. Like within 24 hours of that, you got cops arresting your ass and literally perp walking you out is what it is then. So, anyway, that's how it should be anyway. In a just society, that's how it would be right now. But unfortunately, we don't live in a just society. We live in this two-tiered crony capitalist society that's been held up by giant corporations and insider trading and scumbaggery and all kinds of corruption and bribery scandals and pay to play scandals and everything else like that for literally a century now or more. So, like I said, until the entire system is basically set back to square one right now with some kind of event or some kind of and by some kind of event, I mean anything at that point. It could be any kind of war, whatever the case be, among the people, or it could be a literal second Great Depression kind of event like that. Any kind of black swan kind of thing like that is what it would be then. So, yeah, until something like that happens, we're just basically, twiddling thumbs at this point, honestly, is what it is. We're trying to get in office ourselves, it'll be then. So, I don't know if that's even going to work anymore, honestly. I mean, I'm going to try, obviously, but like, I don't know. It's very disheartening to know that, like, we have this just bullshit going on all the time. The thing about it is, though, right? Like, the great thing about Ohio being supermajority, though, unlike many other states here in this country, is unless you have a Republican on something, it's never going to get committee hearings, is what it is. That being said, as far as I'm aware, though, I think they are bringing some kind of Senate version of that bullshit safe storage law forward into a Senate hearing next week, is what it is there. And it's basically, I think, just to placate them is what it is, because the place that it's going is the Veteran Affairs Committee. And knowing that committee specifically, as I do for the past several years now, and knowing who chairs it right now, it's all pro 2A people. So I almost guarantee it's going to be, you're going to have one and done hearing for that, where it's going to be the, sponsor testimony thing or whatever there this coming week. And then it's going to be like, okay, cool, go away now. And then it basically kills the committee then, if that be the case then. Like it never gets a second hearing, never gets a third hearing, nothing like that. Or if it does get to that second, third hearing, whatever, where it's like proponent, opponent testimony stuff or whatever, they'll just be like, okay, cool, we're going to vote this. Okay, yep, voted down by, 7-4, whatever the hell it's going to be then. So, but yeah, I could see it easily being just, it gets one committee hearing and that's it then. And then it just never is heard from again for the rest of this General Assembly then. So, which honestly, it shouldn't even got a hearing to begin with at all. So, and that's unfortunate that people are willing to placate these assholes now, when in reality, every single Democrat in the state of Ohio right now, I don't care if they're a first termer or they're, second, third, fourth term, whatever it is right now, or they're people like Cecil Thomas who have flip-flop for General Assembly illegally is what it is, after being termed out on one side of it. They should all be in prison right now, legitimately, because everything that people have done right now for anywhere from the past 4 months now to the past 4 years now is multiple deprivation of rights of law charges against these people. It's multiple criminal acts they've committed by trying to steal gun rights. It's multiple criminal acts they've committed by trying to push forward abortion shit and genital mutilation of children stuff, et cetera there. And yet they're not being held to account is what it is. And that's what bothers me the most. It's like you're letting them fucking slide. And I think the reason that these rhinos in power right now in the state of Ohio, letting them slide so much, is because they know for a fact if they actually did arrest them or have them arrested, there would be blowback, and it would basically out the criminal shit that half these people have fucking done then. And so you'd have like half of our state house right now go to prison currently, which is what should happen anyway. That's the whole point. I hate them all, dude. I fucking hate them all because I hate the corruption going on in the state for the past 20-something years of my life. And I didn't even realize what was going on until about 5 or 6 years ago. But ever since I knew it was going on the past 5 or 6 years now, it just pisses me off consistently because it's like, I feel like there's nothing I can personally do about it because I'm not law enforcement, because I'm not, have a badge and stuff like that. Whereas if I did, maybe I'd be able to arrest some of these fucking people, or at least try anyway. They'd probably try to take my badge after that, obviously, because of that. But that's the problem with these fucking sheriffs right now in the state of Ohio. Like, they're not doing their job to go arrest these motherfucking scumbag criminals on both sides of the political aisle. Instead, they're taking bullshit stances like the Fraternal Order Police did the other day, where they're like, oh, but we totally back gun control because we're a bunch of jackbooted fucking thug pieces of shit who love to fucking take away people's constitutional rights to keep and bear arms in this country. And it makes our job harder when people are actually armed legally. And if that be the case, and that you claim that makes your job harder because of that, dude, fuck you. Get the fuck out of law enforcement, bitch, because you have no fucking right to be there to begin with, because you are a fucking oath-breaking sack of shit yourself, if that be the case. Enough is enough of this shit, dude. It's time for all of them to just be out the fucking window right now. And we start back to square one. Zero of any of that kind of corruption bullshit. Everybody brand new then. And it's as simple as that, really. And we'd be much better off as a country right now, across the board. So, anyway, I'll be back later tonight on Rumble with Honda and the boys there for his Gay Frog chat. So, that'll be in about 4-ish hours, give or take, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Like 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock, somewhere in there. So, that'll be where I'm at tonight. But other than that, that's pretty much where we're at for the day. I got about roughly an hour left on this account right now until the 4th of June, and then I'll have to flip over to my other accounts and stuff like that if I want to do any more after that. So, and yeah, that's pretty much where we're at right now. I don't know how I did it either, by the way, but like a couple weeks ago, I somehow cut my finger right there in the fucking joint. I don't know if it was because I was fucking around with a knife or something like that, trying to sharpen it or something. And it like kind of like was able to get me. I didn't realize it got me because it's like so sharp already or whatever, or what happened there. But yeah, something. It's like a little crazy like knife cut on the side of my finger there. It's been healing, but it's not quite healed yet, is what it is. Like right on the knuckle joint there. So not good, obviously, but hopefully it'll eventually heal over and stuff like that and completely, and that scab will go away, and we'll actually have a back to square one then is what it'll be then. Unfortunately, the arthritis in my hands is getting worse, it seems like, anymore. So it's not fun, man. It's not fun knowing that come about probably 10 years from now or so, I'll definitely have to be having an AR pistol brace just to be able to shoot a gun then. Just because the arthritis in my body is getting so bad anymore. So, yeah, never fun. Never fun at all. But anyway, that's pretty much where we're at for the day, though. The left is a bunch of scumbags. They're the ones doing most of this shit, if not all of it. And if they're not the ones doing it, it's their leftist-run governments is what it is that are doing the propaganda stuff is what it is, dude. And committing these various terror attacks and stuff. So, anyway, that's pretty much it for the day. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you all in the next one.